White Collar undeniably ranks among the most popular crime dramas ever made, but fans of the show don't have to look too far in order to find the next best thing. The show ran for 6 seasons between 2009 and 2014, making a name for itself as an innovative, more laid-back approach to serialized crime that wasn't really being done at the time. Thankfully, the show will be making a comeback in the near future with a highly anticipated White Collar reboot in the early stages of production. The story of the original series followed a con artist named Neil, who's hired by the FBI to help them catch white-collar criminals in exchange for his freedom. What ensued was a fairly familiar police procedural, but White Collar always managed to make itself stand out from its competition with engaging characters, well-developed storylines, and plenty of long-running mysteries and shocking twists along the way. White Collar had several great seasons, and its popularity made room for a multitude of shows with similar premises. The Blacklist's premise made it perfect for fans of the White Collar. The show has many similarities. Diane Rodriguez and James Spader in The Blacklist. One of these shows, and perhaps the most successful of them, is The Blacklist. The show took a very similar approach to storytelling as White Collar, with fascinating characters and inventive crimes that always kept the overarching narrative of the show in mind. In this way, both projects differed strongly from most other procedurals, but each reaped the benefits of that. The story of The Blacklist follows a notorious criminal called Raymond Reddington, whose crimes are forgotten in exchange for his help catching others. Over the years, The Blacklist has been compared to countless other crime projects, The Silence of the Lambs, Mindhunter, and Say 7, and just to name a few. However, its most blatant inspiration is White Collar, and that's obvious from the crossover between audiences. Its similar premise made The Blacklist perfect for fans of White Collar, allowing them to tune in each week for new mysteries and returning characters in exactly the same way. When White Collar ended after Season 6, The Blacklist was the next best thing. How The Blacklist was different from White Collar. The Blacklist was inspired, but it didn't copy. James Spader as Raymond Reddington looking perturbed in The Blacklist. However, none of this is to say that White Collar and The Blacklist are exactly the same. In fact, the two projects display a multitude of differences that have allowed them to stay separate over the years, avoiding accusations that The Blacklist is merely a cut-and-paste copy of White Collar. Firstly, The Blacklist is much darker and more gritty than White Collar ever allowed itself to get. The former goes into much more gruesome detail about the crimes it depicts, and Reddington is a much more serious and intimidating protagonist for the show to follow. In White Collar, however, there were aspects of comedy and lightheartedness that are rarely present in The Blacklist. Neil Caffrey is a much more amiable character than either Reddington or Megan Boone's Elizabeth Keene, which makes White Collar a much easier and less stressful viewing experience. The best episodes of The Blacklist are frequently the darker, more mature episodes, whereas the strongest episodes of White Collar are often shrouded in sharp wit and fun character dynamics. White Collar vs. The Blacklist. Which is better? Is there a clear winner? Ultimately, the question of whether White Collar or The Blacklist is better comes down to what the audience wants from the show. They're both excellent series in their own right, but while their structures and premises are very similar, the execution is completely different in each show. For those looking for something more reliable, where the quality doesn't differ too drastically from season to season, White Collar is probably a safer bet. The show also has more likable characters and engaging relationships that carry through the entirety of the 6 seasons. However, The Blacklist has a higher ceiling. When it's at its peak, it's much better than the average episode of White Collar. James Spader's performance as Reddington is one for the ages, and The Blacklist generally has more complex characters in comparison to its predecessor. Regarding the quality of the shows, specifically the visuals and acting, both projects are extremely strong. The decision is entirely one of preference, but it's fair to say that The Blacklist is a safe continuation for those who enjoyed White Collar and miss its episodic crime storytelling.